Have you ever wondered if one conversation with your child could change the course of their life? As parents, we all want to do the right thing, but sometimes it's not the things we say that leave the deepest impact. It's the things we don't know to say. And when our kids begin to pull away, shut us out, or struggle silently, it can leave us wondering, how did we get here? Welcome back to Turn the Lens Inward. I'm Lisa Taylor, and I help parents and women discover how their own healing can transform the relationships that matter the most. Today, I'm joined by Aimee Provost, a clinical counselor whose own journey through depression, isolation, and questioning her self worth has become the foundation of the work she now does, helping young people and families heal. Together, we're talking about validation, rebuilding trust with your child, and why looking inward as a parent may be one of the greatest gifts that you can give your family. By the end of this episode, you'll have a deeper understanding of what your child may be experiencing beneath the surface and what you can start doing today to reconnect before it's too late. Before we get into today's conversation, I want to share a quick content note. This episode includes conversations about depression, struggles with self-worth, and feelings of not wanting to be here. Please take care of yourself while listening. If this conversation brings up difficult feelings for you, please reach out to someone you trust or seek support from a qualified mental health professional. If you're in Canada and need immediate crisis support, you can call or text 988. If you're outside Canada, please reach out to a crisis service in your area. With that, let's get into today's conversation. Welcome back to Turn the Lens Inward. I'm excited for today. I have a lovely guest. Her name is Aimee Provost. She represents the Anchor of Hope Counseling Center. I'm excited about this conversation specifically because I think of your age, everything you've been through personally, and what you bring to the table for the parents who are our listeners, and some of your professionalism, because I know that you have gone to school, you've gotten your, I believe, MBA.
Master's, yeah, my master's
Yeah.
degree,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's a big deal. That's a big deal. So you bring a lot of education, and that's what I love to be able to provide to our listeners because they're parents who are struggling. And I've been thinking about this a lot lately as a parent. And I remember when I was going through all the things with my daughter, and I thought, if there's something that I could do, I want to do it. I'm
Mhm.
willing to do it. So you're going to be able to provide us with some really valuable, I think, feedback from the perspective of the child.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about yourself, Aimee.
Okay, so as you mentioned, I do have a master's degree in clinical counseling, which is something that I was not expecting that I was gonna end up in. My original course of career was actually in law enforcement. After some trials and errors like that I've gone through in my life, he led me down this course because I struggled with a lot of insecurities growing up in high school, with kind of having coming out and my worth and things like that, that I honestly thought like if I went into law enforcement, they'll toughen me up, and that I would be I would be able to, handle my emotions better. I would actually feel like I'm a better person and, able to control what was going on inside of me at the time. But God had different plans. So like in 2020, that's when he really, made me sit down and be still really, and really take this internal journey that led me to this field of trying to help people navigate those same maybe feelings that I did at that time, and even still sometimes, go through. But it's encouraging for me to be able to share my story a little bit with people and help the parents, know and understand what their child might be going through. That might be very similar to me. And I'm just really excited to be here.
Thank you. We are excited to have you. So you mentioned a little bit about your story
Mhm.
and you kind of briefly glossed over it, like coming out.
Yeah, yeah.
That's a big thing that any individual, especially a teenager or young adult, has to deal with.
Mhm.
Tell us a little bit about what was going on in your mind, how you approached it,
Yeah.
just more of the nitty-gritty
The
details around
details.
that.
That's
Yeah.
not a problem. So I remember almost like it was yesterday because it was just like that kind of, significant life-changing moment for me. I was roughly 13, 14 years old, just kind of going into freshman year. There was a friend of mine where I kind of developed a lot of emotions for. It was like a first person that like I kind of felt really connected. There was a lot kind of going on. I wasn't too sure at the time, really. I just know I felt a lot and they seemed like to be some kind of attraction. So I was very scared, very nervous because I kind of knew what my family believed in, what the world, the society kind of said about, those kind of possible feelings that I was having. And so I was very scared. But I found the courage to just go to my parents one morning. They were kind of brushing their teeth, probably bad timing on my part, but I kind of just went to them and told them like, "Hey, I think I have feelings for my best friend, and I'm not like more than them." And kind of told them like what happened and how I came to that conclusion, and they kind of froze, and I was just like, "Oh, I messed up. Like I probably shouldn't have said this." I started kind of feeling kind of like worse because I could see how they were taking it, and what they told me wasn't too reassuring. And honestly, in that moment, that's kind of what I was looking for. I didn't need them to solve it. I didn't need them to kind of tell me something that like I kind of knew, which was that it was going to be a sin if I continued that. Um, and it's just like it created a lot of tensions and even more emotions, and it really kind of put me down in that moment. Um, so I just kind of like, okay, never mind, and I like walked away. Um, but in that moment, I do remember when I like thought about it and reflected because a lot of my life went back to that situation emotionally and a lot of like my different relationships. And I just really wanted them to tell me some kind of validation or reassuring words and statements like, you know what, it's confusing, but we'll figure it out. Something like that. Like just so that they could see me. Like I was struggling with all these
Hmm.
emotions that I had no clue where to put them. I didn't know what to do with them. I was scared to disappoint them. I was really afraid of that. I think the most that I was going to be a disappointment to them. Um, and it's just a lot of fear, a lot of, just not wanting to, you know, upset them in any way. But when I voiced that, that's what it looked like I did, even if I probably didn't. But in my mindset, that's what it felt like, and it just kind of changed my high school experience a little bit after that, and my relationship with my parents slightly, for a little bit.
Quick
Mm.
interruption. 92% of you aren't subscribed. And I just want to say I really appreciate you being here. If you'd hit follow or subscribe, it genuinely helps more than you think. That's what grows a podcast and gets it in front of the parents who need it most. Okay, let's get back to it. Parenting doesn't come with a manual, sadly.
Yeah.
And we do not always respond in the best way that
Mm,
would be for our kids and for everything to be so healthy and perfect.
mm,
Tell us about some of the things that happened. You just mentioned a little bit of a rocky road during
mm.
school. Like,
Yeah.
what was it like?
So in high school, I did really self-isolate for a while. Granted, I was an athlete, and that helped, I think, navigate a lot of the emotions at the time. But it's like I was there going to school, but internally I was somewhere else. Like I was just in a dark place. Honestly, I think majority of my high school, yeah, there's moments of light and positive stuff and experience. Like there's a lot of things I try to put myself in there, but internally it was very dark. I felt like nobody cared about me. I felt like no one really knew what was really going on. And I started to see, even in my performance on the field, because I played softball, like even that was starting to kind of like go down. And that was getting frustrating for me because I didn't know what was really happening. I just knew I felt very depressed. I felt very lonely, kind of contemplating my work, like what's the point of even living here anymore? Like nobody knows, nobody cares kind of thing. And I've had some crazy experiences too when it came to like spiritual wise, that led me into some weird stuff as well, like being hypnotized on like a senior like day, but that took like a couple days for me to even recover. Yeah, it was like a weird little like high school experience on that one, but it was just I don't know. I really felt alone a lot. And I felt like nobody knew who I was. Nobody really knew what was going on. No one cared to know what I was up to. Um, Felt a lot of loss too with like my parents because I was really close with them growing up. And then since that kind of changed our dynamic, that kind of impacted me a little bit. Um, because I was really close with like my dad. I considered him my like best friend. All the time. So then when that happened, I really felt like I disappointed him, you know, and to lose that connection with him and having to re-find it again, not knowing when that was going to happen, it was just a lot to take in as a high school kid. And I ended up stopping softball too because I just couldn't take it anymore. I was really would started to withdraw um, from a lot of things that I enjoyed doing and kind of self-isolated in my room listening to music. I played drums, so sometimes I would just bang on my drums, all the anger or whatever emotion that I was feeling, just to kind of get it out. So it's just like that's kind of the little things that I was doing. I wasn't going out as much anymore. I was just kind of locking myself in my room, doing what I had to do, just kind of getting by while having this internal battle about should I even be here anymore? I was like, yeah,
Oh.
it was a tough inner world. But externally, high school, I would say I liked it, but internally, it was dark. I gotta say, it was a dark time for me in high school.
So this relationship with your parents, was it an instant change or was it more gradual? Like, did
Mhm.
they recognize what was going on with you, or were you trying to put up a front with them?
I think it felt instant, but it probably was a gradual. And I know I did put a protective front. I think just even recently, I've noticed that I've had that front still. And I've been kind of trying to let that same front that I maybe developed all those years ago back down to allow new things to come my way and make connections, take better risks because that did close me off. So I don't think that helped with me trying to repair my relationship with my parents because I was trying to protect myself way too much and I built like a bunch of defenses. It took me years to figure that out with why my other friendships when I went to college or my relationships in college, I would have that same kind of pattern and whatnot. But yeah, I would definitely say I didn't help them get close to me anymore because I was too scared of that repeating again and having to experience and all that again.
So did they try to get get to understand what was happening with you and you pushed them out? Because I think that this is something that most parents deal with their teenagers. And I
Yeah.
mean, you can speak to this really well based on the fact that you're counseling youth.
Mhm.
Is that the parents, they make that error in judgment and
Mhm.
they don't understand what validation is, and they don't recognize necessarily how harmful their actions or words or lack of words really
Mhm.
impact the child in that moment. And then they complain about, well, my child um is distant, there's one word
Mhm.
answers,
Mhm.
I really don't know what's going on with them, and the parent can't even necessarily track it back to that moment
Mhm.
where it happened for the kid.
Yeah.
Do you have any um more clinical experience around this as to what maybe a parent can do or how it was from your perspective?
Mm. Yeah, for just with the start off of mine, I believe my mom was the first one to kind of try to repair that. And I slowly kind of, I think, let her in the most, because I noticed that. It just, I think me and my dad took a little bit longer. It took me a little while again to figure out why for myself. Me and him we kind of still butt heads, but again, I kind of, made peace with that. As far as like the parents, like when I deal with kids who or youth, who have come to me who are struggling with anxiety, depression, or maybe similar feelings and emotions, I do try to tell the parents the same thing of like reassuring them, right? And kind of encouraging them to listen to the kid, not necessarily give advice, not necessarily, tell them, I need you to do this, I need you to do that, or whatnot, because if they can notice that the child is starting those things and giving them short responses, all the child is wanting is just to kind of be heard, right? They're not looking for the parent to fix the problem that per se. They just kind of maybe want them to be reassured, like, you know what, I hear you. That sounds tough. That's struggling. I remember relating to like maybe that kind of situation, right? Or no, getting in touch with the child's emotion, right? Kind of taking that step back and understanding that feeling again and kind of connecting them with that.
Isn't that kind of an oxymoron though? Like your kid's not talking to you, but we have to listen to them. What do we do in this situation?
See,
How do we get them to talk?
build a rapport again with them. So that's the one thing, like even with like conditional, right? I have to build a rapport with that client, right? That kid, find out what they're interested in, get them to kind of do that again. Start doing things, especially if you notice they were withdrawing from those things that that child likes. So let's just say it was a sport, right? And now they're not wanting to go to practice anymore, or they're not wanting to, play engage. Start small. Be like, hey, do you want to go watch a game with me? Kind of build that relationship again with the kid and what they like and that interest that they do. So then they can start recognizing like, oh, my mom or my dad do want to be there for me. And it kind of helps the child feel safe again, right? That they are
Hmm.
being attention. And then just maybe every once in a while encouraging them like, I am here to listen if you ever do need something to talk about. And if that child says like, okay, let them just say, okay, let them just kind of be. But once they do come to you, that's where I think the parent needs to listen and not try to, push anything on them and just validate them in that moment. Because there will be small moments where the child will end up coming after you kind of encourage them to do certain things with them and being included because that's what I did with a lot of my clients in like the some of my sessions. I remember one client actually specifically, their parents were concerned because he was not playing soccer. He wasn't wanting to go to school or anything, so we would play Uno in session as like a family. Honestly, even though I wasn't the family member, but I would play Uno, and I encouraged the parents or even the siblings to have like a family night and eventually, do a reward, right? Because that child showed up to that family game night. So praise them like, hey, I appreciated you coming in and playing with the family. That meant a lot. Like small statements like that will keep the child returning to something. And when I had a one-on-one with that one kid, I was like, so how have you been feeling? And he's like, good. He's like, I like it when my family plays game because they actually implemented that Uno card as a family outside of the session. And that ended up being one of the kids' favorite thing to do. And then over time, the kid, I was talking to the parents, like he started wanting to get back into soccer again. So it's creating like that security and like family rapport together. It's gonna take time. Um, but you have to be patient when it comes to that and building the rapport, but they'll come. And it ends up being one of their favorite things, at least from what I've noticed with some of my youth. They enjoy some of those things that I've done in session. And then I've encouraged parents to maybe do the same thing with them outside of the sessions, and they listen and they implement it, and they start to see the child come back to what they remember them doing. So yeah, that one was a cool experience to kind of do um,
It
with
sounds
them.
like a great outcome.
It was.
And it's and it's really what I'm hearing you say is that you're reestablishing that trust
Mhm,
because it was broken in that
mhm,
one big moment.
mhm.
What if the parent doesn't recognize that? Do you ever how would do you ever talk to the kids about how they could bring that up with their parent?
I have, I think, and they're usually scared. And usually when I notice that the client is kind of scared, I would encourage them to join the session with me. I was like, I'm like the mediator, and I help the child communicate with the parent. So kind of bringing the two together in session with me, and then that way I could kind of talk with both of them, and then the child can kind of like, in that sense, it helps the child communicate what they need and express themselves so that the parent can listen. But I would be there to kind of help guide the conversation.
Mhm.
That's something that I think in that situation that's mostly what how I overcame those, because a lot of times the kid was nervous to do it on their own. Um,
Yes.
to approach their kids. So then that's where I would offer, okay, well, what about if we brought them in session with us and we start to and we told them you expressed how they felt together. And most of the time they felt safer that way. Um, I can't recall if a client did on their own, but that's usually how I went about that, because a lot of times they are scared to go and tell that, and they say like, oh, they're gonna get mad or they're gonna get more upset at me or something. Like it's always some kind of statement like that when it came to me encouraging the client to talk to the parent about the situation. There was always a sense of fear that was with it.
So what if a parent isn't in counseling with their child?
Mhm.
What if they're just noticing that the stuff has been going on and I'm losing them? And then what if the behavior starts to progress into really dangerous things like drugs,
Mhm.
alcohol, getting into trouble? What would you recommend? What do you recommend to parents?
If the child is started to go into, addiction, drugs, or alcohol, definitely I would have the parents maybe seek some kind of like therapy or parenting classes, to help them understand what could be going on. So then that way they can understand the child and the addiction, kind of looking in themselves, maybe their parenting styles, how it may be impacting the child, kind of take that inner look. That would be one thing I would recommend, because a
Hmm.
lot of times, the parents' behavior could be impacting the child without them not even realizing it. So if they were to kind of take a look and be like, wait, how am I parenting? How am I showing up for my child? What is it that I might be missing? Like kind of taking that quick little inner look, I think would be beneficial for both the parent and the child. Um, because if the parent can kind of maybe learn a few things parenting style wise, or learn a little bit more about themselves, they might be able to pick up like, you know what, I haven't shown up the way this child needed me to show up because of, such and such behavior or such and such belief that I personally have. Um, and then again, the rapport, when it comes to like kids going into the addiction route, you have to kind of help them find that pleasure again, because the addiction, drugs or alcohol, it goes into that pleasure hormone that we have neurologically. So that gives them that sense of reward whenever they're taking that hit, whenever they're taking that drink, and their brain is mentally associating that to that like substance versus like a positive memory maybe at the amusement park, so, or that positive interest that I discussed earlier, like that sport that they love, or that movie, or, dancing, whatever hobby that that kid likes, it's now getting replaced with the addiction. So it's altering their pleasure hormone and as the neurotransmitter that we have. So the parent would have to kind of, if they are noticing the behavior going that way, kind of again build that trust and rapport steer the child back to the more healthier way of getting that like nice pleasure feeling within the self.
If a parent today listening realizes, like, I've
Mhm.
done some of these things and I might be the reason that my child is dealing with this. The what you're really talking about right now is turning the lens inward. That's really
Mhm.
what I kind of created for
Mhm.
myself. Is there a more clinical term around this, or like do you guys talk about this in counseling?
I think even turning the lens inward, like how you described it, is really, what it is. You're really looking inward within yourself, right? It's
Yes.
looking at your inner world, your inner child, your upbringing, yourself, right? And really kind of taking a look at your thoughts, your beliefs, your behaviors, right? And kind of understanding yourself a little bit more. Sometimes it's like a relearning or regrowth, rebirth of who you are, because sometimes, life knocks us down and we start creating narratives within our brain that lost who we know who we are, because it's like we have this deep knowing, like, I know I'm this, I know I'm that, I know I'm this, but you realize after a while, like, I'm not actually behaving like who I know I am. So you have to kind of like take that inward look at that certain lens that you have about yourself. Um, I call it like a healing process. You have to go through a healing journey to reconnect with yourself. Um, Again, because sometimes we lose ourselves with stress of the workday, of life, when it comes to whether it be parenting, just chasing your dreams. Sometimes we make sacrifices and we lose ourselves in that way. So yeah, I think your definition of taking that inward look is how I personally teach it with a lot of people. It's you're just going on that healing journey where you're looking inward instead of outward for answers.
Do you ever work with the parents, or is it mostly the kids in your work?
With my experience right now, it's been with the kids. Primarily, I've had a lot more kids. Only maybe recently have I started working with adults a little bit.
Okay.
But you could still, one thing that I found interesting is even with the kids and as the adults, you could still utilize the same techniques, right, of looking inward, whether it be journaling is something that I personally encourage a lot of people to do because it allows you to put your thoughts on paper and you can actually see visually what is it that you're thinking? What is it that is coming across in your brain? And you can address it with, either yourself if you were able to navigate it or with somebody else and be like, hey, did you know I did this? Or did you know I always thought this? Like whether it be with a close friend, whether it be with a clinician or, and you could just really sit with yourself a little bit more in that way. So I always utilize that. I noticed a lot of thinking patterns be similar too, whether if it was a kid or an adult. A kid can feel like they're worthless and so can an adult. They could think
Yeah.
that about themselves, they could feel unloved. Same thing with an adult. So there's certain patterns in thinking or that kind of matches for both the parent and the child, which is something interesting but I utilize the same tools as I do with the parent as the child too. Just depends case by case, you could say.
So when you were going through your dark period in high school,
Mhm.
how did what was your self-worth, and how did you get it to increase or to become stronger?
In high school, I honestly did not have any self-worth at
Right.
all. It took me a while to realize that about myself. I think it wasn't up until I got into college that I really realized, you know what, I don't find myself worthy of a lot of things. And it was weird to even kind of come to kind of that acknowledgement. Because, yeah,
Mhm.
in high school, I didn't think I was worthy of a friend or of a relationship or, my good grades that I got, ironically. But even with my sports, that's kind of why I stopped, I think. because I didn't feel worthy enough to keep performing or worthy enough to be my parents' child anymore, and that's why I thought it would be better off if I wasn't here. Like some of those thoughts creeped in because I was so worthless in that time. And then a turning point happened for me in college, a little bit after college, actually. I was listening to a meditation and it threw me off because I was just sitting there. I was crying and I was just like, I didn't think you were supposed to cry in meditations. I thought it was supposed to keep me calm. So it was like a weird moment. But I heard these words that I'm not enough. And that's what made me cry in the meditations. And I was just like, wait, what? How long have I said that to myself? That I wasn't enough. And that's where I kind of did that journey of exploration within myself. I got myself a therapist that I still kind of talk to today to help me out still with certain things. But that's when I started doing the work. And then I also opened up my Bible at the same time and started really leaning on the Lord to help Him show me my work. And now, after like going through all that, I've learned that I am enough. I am worthy of my job. I am worthy to be here. I have a purpose to be here. And I've noticed me become more confident in myself to give out to the world even now. Because it's just like, okay, I feel ready now. I feel ready to share my story, to help other people understand that they're not alone.
I think that's amazing that you came to know your soul and you're here for a reason and that we're all born worthy. But we hit this dip. We hit this bottom
Mm.
for some reason. But what specifically started to happen in order for you to raise that thought process in your head?
Yeah. Well, for before that point, I know I had felt locked up. I felt like a chained prisoner in the dark. And I have drawings I drew about it and it was always in my head, but honestly, in 2019, that's I my law enforcement career wasn't going. I did have a marriage at that time, but I started to behave in a way that was outside of me and myself, that I didn't recognize why I was doing those things. So I was very like in my rock bottom is what I like to call it, where the pressure of everything, like, what am I going to do with my life? Like, law enforcement isn't going for me anymore. My marriage is falling apart, or it did fall apart. I don't even know who I was anymore because I got so lost in this darkness, that, you know what, I just kind of, I had enough.
Okay.
I kind of had this moment of like giving up. I need to, what one officer did tell me, it kind of came back into that moment that it was okay to go back to the drawing board. So that those words kind of came through, I think, in those moments in some way. I need to just let go back to the drawing board, try something different. And then I know I always had this belief in God, but I don't think I fully allowed myself to take that journey with him and really get to know him. So that's why I decided, even in that moment where I was just honestly on the bottom, like just really dark place, I just, you know what? I let go. It's your turn. Jesus, take the wheel. Like, so I opened up my Bible and that's where I kind of started going to therapy too at the same time, like simultaneously. And I started journaling a lot, and drawing. I actually kind of got over my insecurity of drawing and I drew out all these analogies I used to have. One of them was the prisoner analogy. One of them was, feeling like a war. So I drew literally, even though they were kind of crappy, but I drew like little images of what it was that I used to help me express how I felt. And I just started expressing myself in any way I could privately. And then eventually I started to notice I was on the right path because, it was weird that what happened in therapy, I was reading in scripture and I was able to pick up on that. And I was just like, okay. huh. I was like, I'm getting the right lesson. And then once I got to school to go back to school, to get my master's, I was like, are you sure? Do I have to go back to school? Because I was done. After my bachelor's, I was done. But because I was taking that journey with him and letting him guide me and just taking that trust and following, I signed up back to school. And even in when I was in school, the topics that in my coursework related to, again, some scriptures. And I was able to see, I was like, all right, I'm on the right path. I'm following, and I was learning about myself, picking up self-help books, reconnecting with my inner child. There was like a podcast that actually stood out to me that helps me with that. It was like, it's called The Adult Chair. Um, and
The
it talks
adult, sorry, repeat that.
the adult chair.
Adult chair.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
like that name. That sounds
Yeah.
great.
And this podcaster described the different chairs, right? The child's chair where we're from ages like 6 to, before adolescent, that child. Then you have the adolescent chair, and then you have your adult chair. And that really stood out to me because I got to see, okay, when I behaved like this, I went down to this chair. When I acted a certain way, I was in this one. But the thing about being in the adult chair, we have that way of thinking where we can take that lens and look at those pieces inside us, right? And do a quick reflective moment, be like, you know what? I don't need to, I feel like this, or I feel triggered, or I feel upset because of such and such. And then you know what? Everything's going to be okay. And then you just resume. And it's like taking that journey really helps me find myself again. Um, the fact that I love camping, it helped me reconnect with myself with that. The fact that I like outdoors, or the fact that I like puzzles. Like I got to find all those inner Amies and bring them back to present and find life again, to be more enjoyable that way. And I think us as adults, we forget little us that needs maybe that reparenting maybe, because again, our parents maybe didn't show up the way we wanted them to in a certain moment of our life, whether it was when we were 5 or in high school. And that's one thing about adults. We have that ability to be there, show up for ourselves, and be that parent that we wish we had, or be that person that, if you don't have kids, but be that person that you wanted in that moment to yourself.
Aimee, that was epic.
Yeah.
What
Sorry, there's a lot
what
there for a second.
there
I was
there
on a
was,
roll.
and thank you for being so open and answering the question, because you were kind of like, yeah, and then I went through this journey and then I found myself and then things were better. But I wanted to hear exactly what you did, and it started with somebody told me it was okay to fail and it was okay
Yeah.
to start again. And then you took the action and you went and you got a counselor.
Hmm.
And at the same time, you opened up your Bible.
Hmm.
And then at the same time, you were listening to podcasts and you started to draw you allowed creativity to come out of you to show you what you needed to see, that darkness that was locked inside. And then you surrendered to the whole process. Everything you did is exactly what a parent. I loved the mirroring part too.
Hmm.
Like a parent whose child is going through all of this, their first instinct is always like, what help can I get my kid?
Hmm.
Versus what help can I bring to myself? And that's really what we're trying to instill here with the podcast is, and not only for parents whose kids are struggling with major, major issues, mental
Hmm.
illness, addiction,
Hmm.
homelessness, that kind of thing. Like that does exist, but
Oh yeah.
that's the far side of it. There can just be the beginning stages, and to recognize, oh, I could do work on myself and it's going to impact my kid, the one that I love the most,
Hmm.
the one that we want to nurture and hold and protect, and for them to lead this beautiful life. And you just told us exactly all the things that you did. Now, was it hard?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It was definitely hard because on top of that, I was having some nightmares and some dreams too. So it was just like, whoa. But yeah, no, it was hard to face a lot of that. Very hard. But one thing that I noticed is the more that I faced it, I faced that pain, I faced those, little fears or those negative stuff. Even if it was like a little bit, I did feel lighter. And that got addicting a little bit. To notice like maybe if I was feeling like super low and I went up a little bit, I noticed it and I was like, okay, I gotta keep doing this. That's what I like. I gotta keep if I want to keep feeling lighter, if I want to keep taking off those, let's just say I was carrying a bag of rocks. If I want to keep dropping a rock, I have to keep going. So it
Yes, I
it
love
it
it.
it
Yes.
took a
Yes.
bit, but yes.
Yes. Good for you. And now tell us a little bit about what you're doing and who you're serving.
Yeah, right now, actually, I'm very new as starting off a self-paced online course program with coaching. It's called Mindful Mastery. So that's what that course is doing, is mimicking my journey, but teaching it to other people, really. And they can have access by themselves if they're not ready for a one-on-one. So that I have multiple different levels too. But I also would encourage them to meet with me and choose one where I can help guide them and teach them the tools more effectively. And, it starts off like small, where you build a foundation, and then you start to see yourself flourish and grow throughout the 6 months. It's not long for a purpose, for a reason, to slow everybody down, because that's one thing I recognized with myself in my journey. I needed to slow it down. It's okay. We don't need to be all fast, Ferrari going down life, slow it down again, reset. And that's what my Mindful Mastery 6 month, program does. It helps people to slow it down, take that inner look, build some tools, and, hopefully help them change themselves into the version they always knew they were, and become the best version of themselves and change their life a little bit. So that's kind of what I've been working on right now. Uh,
I love it. It's your message, right?
yeah. Hmm.
Because that's what you just said. You're like, I'm exactly what I did.
Yeah.
I've put it into this program that I'm gonna help impact others. Get rid of those rocks, one rock at a
Hmm.
time. I
Hmm.
love it. I love it.
Yeah. I knew I wanted to help people, but I didn't know it was gonna be this way. Let's just say that. I knew I had a purpose, and I do think that I went through what I went through to be able to share that purpose now. I definitely feel ready and confident to help other people, whether it be parents with their kid or even the kid to help get connected with their parents. Just I want to be the person I wish I had in certain moments, and that's why I built the program. Is to help those people a little bit quicker find out and go through life with somebody instead of them thinking they have to go through it alone.
Good for you. And congratulations for your
Thank you.
success and your hard work and where you are right now. And I know you're going to have a lot of success. And I know this is the beginning of it and it's so exciting. And
Hmm.
I'm really grateful that I'm one of the people who got to have this conversation with you and to ignite this for you. And okay, so I'm going to put stuff in the show notes, but
Hmm.
where can we find your program?
I would encourage
Okay.
you to reach out or follow me on my Instagram or my TikTok.
Hmm.
It's my TikTok is going to be just Anchor of Hope. You'll see a photo of me. I post on there at least 4 times a week. Same thing with Instagram, but I'm pretty active if I get messages. Also, if you're not on social media, you can contact me on my email, and I can start sending you, the link and get you booked on a consultation with me, and we could talk further. And my email address would be Anchor of Hope Counseling Center at gmail.com. So for those on
Perfect.
social media, go find me on there. But if you're not, then my email, yeah, I'm active on that one. So I'd get back to you pretty quickly.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're going to have it all in the show notes. So you'll be able to find Aimee,
Perfect.
but definitely follow her. She's doing great things for the world. and congratulations. Every
Thank you.
single person who, even if like one person on this podcast that they hear it and then they implement some of the things or they contact you and they begin the journey to finding who they truly are and then helping them to get those rocks off. I
Mm.
love that analogy, by the way. Like you couldn't have a better outcome. So congratulations.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining me today.
Of course, it's been an honor. I've been having a good time on here with you, so I definitely know you'll go far too. I love what you're doing as well and what you set out to do. So I'm looking
Thank you,
forward.
Aimee. Okay, and with that, it's the end of the show. Thank you for being here. If you liked it, definitely give us a like, comment. We want to hear your comments. And if you haven't subscribed yet, subscribe.